All right, y'all. We are back. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Today's topic, man, is Frank Gore a Hall of Famer? I think most people would say yes. I tend to disagree just a little bit. We're going to get into all the details about that, my explanation as to why I push back on it just a little bit. Just an opinion. Appreciate yours. Can't wait to bring y'all up so you guys can tell me why I'm stupid, why I'm wrong, all that good stuff. Y'all know what it is. San Francisco 49ers Morning Show. Let's go.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Frank Gore. Over midfield, he'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Cross Talk TV podcast. Peace.
Welcome to another episode of the San Francisco 49ers Morning Show. I'm your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And y'all know what it is, man. As always, if you don't already listen to the Locked On 49ers podcast, which I'm pretty sure most of y'all do, tune into that. It's on any streaming platform that you have. YouTube, we on all that. Myself, my co-host, Brian Peacock. He's the host. I'm the co-host, whatever it is. But Peacock's the man. All right. Locked On 49ers will come at you 5 days a week. Also, Locked On NFL Draft. See, I got my Locked On Network shirt on today. Locked On NFL Draft with myself and Ryan Tracy. Right now, we're doing a league-wide mock with all the experts, local experts on the Locked On Network. So shout out to that. Tune into that and really all your other draft needs. We're trying to cover all our bases, baby, all of our bases. Underdog Fantasy, download the app or go to underdogfantasy.com right now. Use the promo code Crockett and they'll match whatever you put in there. If you're into over-unders like I am, that's the place for you. Underdog Fantasy, player props, all that good stuff. Fantasy football, fantasy sports, Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky. Do that right now. All right, man, we're gonna jump straight into it. Appreciate everybody sitting here. I see everybody feeling good. See the flames going up. 5 flames if you're feeling great. Y'all know what it is. Shout out to all my people in here. Love all y'all. Y'all make my mornings pretty good. Woke up this morning, did some dishes. Hey, real quick, one thing to be on the lookout for. Y'all know there are some people that aren't the regulars in here, right? Like I have the regulars, and y'all know, like we come on here, and sometimes I'll go on a tangent talking about other things, whether it's some of the business ventures I have, parenting, whatever, right? Like sometimes I'll just go on for like 10 minutes or so. And I know there are a lot of people that don't want to hear that. Like they come in here and they want to talk about 49ers football. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a podcast that's once a week where I just talk my shit, whether it's about sports, maybe it's not pertaining to the 49ers, whether it's about my business stuff, whether it's, the ins and outs of podcasting and how, trying to continue to grow my business, my gym that I'm building right now, the ups and downs of life, marriage, parenting, all that good stuff. I'm going to release one episode a week. I will put the video on here. It won't be something that's live. I also have the audio on all the audio streaming platforms, but I was like, you know what? I have a lot of thoughts in my head, and sometimes I just want to like express myself and talk about it, and maybe somebody else and bring some of y'all on, like whatever it is. But I want it to be more of a lifestyle / entrepreneur type podcast as opposed to just 49er Center. So be on the lookout for that. I'll probably start that up next week. Get some good topics going, get some good things to talk about. But appreciate all y'all in here, man. Shout out to all y'all. Gore is definitely a Hall of Famer for life. I hear y'all. Okay, so one thing I want to make clear. Y'all that come in here, the regulars in here, you know I am not a hot take guy. How many times have y'all heard me say like a hot take? I would assume not very much, right? Like that's not really what I do. That's not my angle. All right, not my angle at all. I'm not a hot takey person. I would like to think that everything that I say to y'all is, for the most part, thought out. Now, there are people that don't tune into the YouTube channel, so they don't know these things, right? They don't know that, I really try to like explain myself and articulate myself the best way possible. And I got my guy, Chris Crock. I'm going to cook you on this topic. Chris, I'm about to have you on. You gonna be the first person on. I tried to get a couple other people on. They were busy this morning. All right, but I'm not a hot take person at all. And sometimes I feel like, I'll just give my thoughts, like just things I'm thinking, and I'll explain it. And you can agree or you can disagree, and that's great. I don't think that everyone should agree with everything that Eric Crocker says. Just like I don't agree with everything that everybody, but I will hear y'all out. What does kind of annoy me are the people that it's like if you have an opinion and it differs from theirs, it's like, oh, you're stupid, you're wrong, oh, it's this, you're that. And I'm like, man, like I don't even feel like I be coming off like that. I don't think I come off like that. And it's crazy. I think people blocked me because of my opinion on Frank Gore as a Hall of Famer. Like blocked, stupid, idiot, all this stuff, like name calling. And it's like, wow, football player. All right, so we'll talk about it, and I will bring y'all on to I want to hear the other side of it, y'all arguments and stuff like that. Now, I want to make one thing clear as well, another thing clear. I love football. Like, I am a fan of football. Like, I am obsessed about football. Obviously, I love my 49ers, man. Y'all see all this stuff back here, right? Clearly, but like, first and foremost, I am obsessed with the game of football. Like, I love it. So on Sundays, and my wife will tell you, I'll call her in here, she'll tell you right now. Sundays, I mean, like, I'm sitting down. It's not like, yeah, if the 49ers are playing, don't ask me to do anything. She knows that. But really, you got to ask me if you want me to do anything around the house, if there's any errands I need to run, my wife knows. She has to let me know before any of the games start. Any of the games, not just 49ers, not just like any of the games, because I'm sitting down on my couch and I'm watching TV. I'm watching football all day long. I watch any game that's on TV. It doesn't matter. I'm watching it. All right. So my perspective does not come from just purely a San Francisco 49er fan, but I will give my fan perspective on Frank Gore. I think Frank Gore was an amazing running back. I thought he was so good. I think he's one of the most underrated backs in the NFL in the sense of running style, right? Because he's not like the fastest, and obviously he's not like this tall, big, physically opposing guy. But I thought he was so light on his feet. The change of direction was terrific. The way he was able to get skinny in the hole, I thought he was someone who he could turn a 0-yard gain into 4 yards. Like, if it's blocked up for 0 yards, like, he's going to get 4. If it's blocked up for 4 yards, he's going to get 8. If it's blocked up for 10 yards, he's going to get 30. Like, that's why I thought Frank Gore. I mean, I thought that was like a really special trait of his that was extremely unique amongst the NFL and really guys in his time. I think he, as a 49ers, means so much because the 49ers were really down and out a lot. And maybe that kind of ultimately puts a damper on how I feel about him, like, throughout his career. All right. He had to carry some really bad 49er teams. 2005, which I think was his rookie year, the quarterbacks, I didn't know this stat until Brian Peacock told me. The quarterbacks combined for the 49ers this year, including Alex Smith, who, everybody talk about Trey Lance, and this is not about Trey Lance, but Trey Lance and what he's done. Alex Smith, his rookie year, 1 touchdown pass, 11 interceptions. Matter of fact, the 49ers as a whole had 8 touchdown passes. 8 touchdown passes as a whole. Frank Gore had to play with that. Like, that is tough. 2006, he had the best year of his career, 1,695 yards, so almost 1,700 yards, and he was, great, right? Like, man, like, this running back, he is dope. Frank Gore hit the ground running. Now, he was 3rd in rushing, I believe, but that's because some other guys had some great years. All right, they had some great seasons that year. All right, so anyways, he had a terrific year. Loved it. When I watched Frank Gore throughout his career, now again, these are the things that, it depends on how you feel about what it means to get into the Hall of Fame. When I view the Hall of Fame, I view it as a place for, like, the best of the best. Like, and when I say the best of the best, I mean, like, you were considered the best or arguably the best at your position for a few years, and then obviously played longer or whatever, and man, kind of picked up a bunch of different accolades and things like that. All right, so here is my question about Frank Gore, and I think he's awesome. I think as it pertains to 49ers, he should nobody should wear number 21 again. Ring of honor, build a statue. I think if you listen to his teammates and things like that, he exemplified everything that you want your teammate to be. All right. Amazing, smart player. What he overcame coming out of college, 2 blown ACLs. All right. But my pushback is, was he ever considered the best? And I think the answer to that is no. I don't think at any time, maybe if you look, he had the great year in 2006. Outside of that, was there ever a year where you're like, Frank Gore's a top 3 back in the NFL? Frank Gore's a top 4 back in the NFL. Now, maybe you could say, well, he played on some bad teams. I mean, there's some other guys that play on some bad teams too, and they'll still be considered the best running back in that time. I mean, shoot, Adrian Peterson. There's some of the quarterbacks he played with, I don't know, I mean, and it didn't matter. Hall of Fame to me is for the elite of the elite. And I think that Frank Gore was great. I see the 16,000 yards. That is great. He played for a really long time. But as he compiled those 16,000 yards rushing, which is great, at any point during that time, during those years, did you say he's a top 3 running back in the NFL? At any point. Especially for the running back position that it changes every year, like year to year. There could be somebody that's up, and then a few guys, okay, they go on a run, and then okay, it drops down, and then there's change at the top. It's not like quarterback position, right? Somebody was like, well, how do you think Big Ben Roethlisberger is a Hall of Famer? He was an All-Pro. It's like, dude, Ben Roethlisberger played in the AFC with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, who compiled 16 All-Pro. Like, they were on the All-Pro team 16 times between the two of them. They're winning champions, MVPs, all that stuff. Like, it is a little different, but running back, it changes. It kind of changes all the time. And at no point, even with it changing as much as it has, and y'all can tell me, was Frank Gore a top 3, top 4 running back in the league? I think he was really good. So I know there are people kind of coming in right now. They're like, Croc, hot take, you're tripping. Man, listen, great player. But what is Hall of Fame? And now again, maybe I just don't know what it means to be a Hall of Famer. Maybe I don't know what the criteria is for people to get in. That could be it. There are probably guys that I believe are in that maybe I'm like, how did that guy get in? When I think of Hall of Famer, I think of Patrick Willis. Patrick Willis was, and then I know he only played 8 years, so didn't have the longevity. But in his 8 years, he was special. 6 years, his first 6 years in the league, there were always the conversation of he's either the best or one of the best. He's either the best or one of the best with Patrick Willis, right? 6-time All-Pro or whatever in 8 years. Like, he was amazing. Like, to me, like, it's a motherfucking Hall of Famer. That is a Hall of Famer. And even then, Patrick Willis kind of struggling to get in. Maybe because he didn't play 4 more years or whatever, but he's kind of struggling to get in right now. To me, that's Hall of Fame. Frank Gore, Ring of Honor, great 49er, retire his number, build a statue, all that. I think he's the 3rd best 49er back. Roger Craig, Ricky Watters are better. See, now listen, I don't want to say who back. I don't know. I'm a little young for both of those guys. I'm 34 years old. And obviously I know who they are. I know who they are. I've seen the highlights. I've seen the different things. But in the sense of how I've watched football from, 1998 on, I didn't really get to view them through that light. 1998. I mean, I was in, like the way I'm obsessed about football right now. Man, it was the same way when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, like super obsessed. But anything before that, it's like I saw it, but I love watching Allen Iverson. Like, I know, but yeah, I mean, if there's an argument for that, and again, I don't know. Now, here's the thing: most people would say they're gonna put the longevity and the yards that he accumulated, and that's why you get it. And if that's why he gets in, great. Like, but just to me, for what I think, okay, Hall of Fame, the best of the best, the elite of the elite, and he was really good amongst elite guys, but was he ever considered the best? And I just kind of have a hard time saying he was. Lesser running backs have gotten in the Hall of Fame. Terrell Davis. Again, if you look at what Terrell Davis did, and we'll put up what Terrell Davis did. Here we go. Terrell Davis. Now, maybe you could say Terrell Davis is in a better situation, and if that's what you think, then I could see that. I could see that. If you're like, man, well, look at Terrell Davis and the team he was on, the offense, but we're talking about two-time Super Bowl champion, which is not that's not like a thing that's just like, oh well, he has so much to do with it. But okay, two-time Super Bowl champion, he can throw that in there. Super Bowl MVP, was the league NFL most valuable player in 1998, two-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year, three-time first-team All-Pro, three-time Pro Bowl, like NFL rushing yards leader, like two-time NFL rushing touchdowns leader. So if we're talking about Frank Davis being less than Frank Gore, that is not true. Now, did he play as long as him? No, he don't even have half the yards. But in the sense of like what he did, like, I mean, again, and that's Hall of Fame, right? Like that is Hall of Fame. After Super Bowl championship, but Super Bowl MVP, NFL most valuable player, two times NFL Offensive Player of the Year, three-time first team All-Pro, rushing leader, touchdown leader, twice. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's Hall of Fame. That's Hall of Fame. And again, I don't want to come off as if I'm taking anything away from the great career that Frank Gore had. But it was just crazy because I got kind of tied up in the conversation yesterday. My guy Vish put it out there and he's like, man, I'm probably gonna get drugged for this, which I didn't even know it was that like hot of a like thing or like sensitive of a subject for a lot of people. Like Joe Staley, I don't think he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. Really good football player. I don't think anybody should wear number 74 again. I think they should build a statue of Joe Staley. But I don't think Joe Staley is going to be a Hall of Famer. Or I don't think he is in my eyes. Maybe he will be. I don't know. Now, I say all that to say I do think that he will get in. I want it's like, so I'm bringing it full circle here. I believe Frank Gore will get into the Hall of Fame. I believe he will get in. You look at, the 11, 1,000-yard seasons, playing, 16,000 yards, third all time. Like, I think he'll get in. It's just my opinion of, I believe that he is. And that's the part. I don't know. Maybe if he play on a better team. Maybe I see somebody, who's the best quarterback you play for? Maybe if you have better quarterbacks, maybe I would view him a different way. But as it holds right now, like end of his career, great career, all that, I see not quite Hall of Fame. But you know what? The floor is yours. Come on and come on and argue. Chris, you come up first. come on first. You know what I'm saying? And let me hear it. I don't believe that this is a hot take. I don't believe that this is a hot take. Now, again, I could be wrong. And I think there are people that are going to try to appease everyone and please, oh yeah, he's 100% Hall of Fame. All right. Yeah, y'all know, everybody that's tuned in right now, I'm not a hot takey person. I'm not. All right, coming on. We got Chris coming on. Shout out to my guy, Chris Roscoe's. Good morning, Chris.
What's up, Croc? How's it going?
Oh, going good. How you doing this
Dang, I could barely hear you. But whatever, we just gonna make this work.
All right.
It's just I don't know. Croc. I can't believe you even talking about this. I can't believe you even saying this stuff. First off, because Vish was the person who started it, right?
Yeah.
I think Vish is like 23, 24 years old, if that, maybe younger. Gore was drafted in what, 2005?
2005. Yeah.
Fish was barely old enough to actually watch this guy play. How can you speak on somebody you barely even watched play? And then he says Frank Gore is a top 15 back all time. How can you say somebody's a top 15 back all time and then say he's not a Hall of Famer? That is a contradiction of the highest order. Top 15, we're talking about thousands of running back playing in this game. And he said Frank Gore is a top 15 running back all time. That tells me that that's a Hall of Famer.
I
He's a
can't
top.
speak on all times because there's so many guys I didn't watch. So I just speak on the era and guys like I'm comparing him to guys in his era and guys who, like I watched all these guys. I watched Frank Gore, and at any point did I think that Frank Gore was among the top 5 of any of the guys in his era in any given year.
Bro, okay.
So you
So
hold
I'm
on. So you're telling me that you think in most years he was a top 3 running back in the NFL?
top 5.
Top 5. So let's throw out a random year. All right. Hold on. Say a random year. He played from 05 to 2001 or whatever.
No.
Say a random year.
I look, 2016. I mean, not 26, 2006. 2006, he literally was a top 3 running back in the league.
All right. I'll give you that. Okay. 2003. I mean, 2006. Excuse me. I know. And I
He,
referenced
when
that.
the
He ran
40,
for
when the
almost 1,700
49ers
yards.
when the 49ers was winning, I think in 2012, 2013, I definitely believe he was in the top 5 running back echelon. I mean, the Niners literally went through him. Matter of fact, in the Falcons game, the Niners were down 17-0 against the Falcons in the NFC Championship, right?
Right.
What did they do? What did Jim Harbaugh do? Greg Roman do and say what did they do? I want to know what I want you to answer that question. What did they do?
They won the game. They came
No.
back.
They said, "Oh, you know what? We got to run the ball. Frank Gore is going to get us back in this game." Frank Gore got the team back in the game. I thought Frank Gore at that time, especially those 2-3 years, uh, I thought he was a top 5 running back.
You thought he was a top 5 running back in those 2-3
Yes,
years.
the offense ran through him.
So what years is this?
This
2012?
so 2012, 2013.
All right, let's see. All right, so we're going to pull up 2012 rushing leaders.
But remember, just you can't just say, oh, because he wasn't like top 3 leading rusher that he wasn't top 5. I mean, it's more than just stats. Remember, because y'all talk about that too. It's more than just stats.
It can't be more than stats because everybody's throwing out 1,600 yards. So it is about stats. I mean, 16,000, excuse me.
No, I mean the 16,000 is really based on longevity, so I understand that. But what I throw out is the consistency of, well, he had 9 1,000-yard seasons, which not many running backs can do. Tell me other running backs who've had 9,000 yards who didn't make the Hall of Fame.
Listen, I hear
No,
that. So
no,
no,
Croc, I need you to answer the
again,
question.
I'm
Tell
saying
me,
that he's going to make the Hall of Fame. I'm saying I never thought that he was one of the top 5 best running backs in the league in any season outside 2006. Yes. Now again,
like I
maybe
said,
some of it was
thought 20.
circumstances.
I thought 2011, 2012, he definitely was, in my opinion.
You thought he was the top 5.
Yes.
So you had Adrian Peterson, who ran for almost 2,100 yards.
Jamal Charles.
And who was Adrian Peterson's quarterback in that year? Because everybody keeps bringing up quarterbacks.
Christian Ponder, I don't know.
Yeah, somebody trash, right? And you roll them to the playoffs. All right. Alfred Morris. Now, Alfred Morris ran for 1,600. Would the Washington football team have been in the playoffs if not for Alfred Morris? They rolled him in RG3, but specifically the offense ran through
Okay.
him.
Who? So yes, he did run for 1,600 yards.
Marshawn
but was
Lynch,
Alfred Morris better than Frank Gore?
Jamar Charles. No, and that's not. But what I'm saying is, when you look at like every year, I mean, I could say Alfred Morris definitely not better running. Like, no, I would never say that he had a better career than Frank Gore. But could he have been better that year?
Even that year, was he better than Frank Gore?
I did not watch Washington as much as I watched the 49ers, but I would say that Alfred Morris was equally as important to Washington and their playoff run as Frank Gore was to the 49ers. Do you disagree with that? A team that had a rookie quarterback and had to lean on the run game?
The whole Niners thing was based off of running the football.
I know, but I'm saying you're asking you're asking was Frank Gore better than Alfred Morris that year? And my thing was, I don't know if he was just better, but I do know that Alfred Morris was equally, if not more important to his team than Frank Gore. Like if Alfred Morris did not run for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns, they are not going to the playoffs.
And if the 49ers don't have Frank Gore, I can guarantee they probably go 8-8.
Maybe. But again, and that's what I'm talking about as far as the running backs go. So you got Adrian Peterson,
but
Alfred
hold
Morris,
on, we got
Marshawn Lynch,
you do
Jamar
think he
Charles.
will make the Hall of Fame, but you don't think he's a Hall of Fame running back. Now we got to get back to this. Croc, I need you to answer this question though. How many running backs have 9 seasons rushing for 1,000 yards and didn't make the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. I haven't looked at the list of Hall of Famers like that. Not to the extent of like, okay, well, how many ran for this many yards, this many time, or this many, like 1,000 or this. Like, I've never like sat down and put together like a spreadsheet of how guys are getting in.
And then I want to ask you this question. Jerome Bettis, Isaac Bruce, and Curtis Martin. Were they considered the best at any point at their position?
Curtis
I love
Martin?
Isaac Bruce. Isaac Bruce was not a top 3 receiver year in and year out.
Right, but you're asking, like, again, Isaac Bruce got in, right? Now, Curtis Martin, he was probably considered one of the top 2 or 3 running backs for several years. All right, but as it pertains to Isaac Bruce, I don't think he was ever considered the best or maybe even like top 3. All right, but also you're asking, would Eric Crocker have put him in? So I'm not saying that he won't be a Hall of Famer.
No, I know.
This is based on
using your criteria.
Right. My criteria of what I think, like, what is a Hall of Famer? Oh, you're one of the best at your position.
See, but this is like
you're considered one of the best.
This is where I disagree with you. I think Isaac Bruce definitely deserved to be in the Hall of Fame.
Why?
Just like I think Frank Gore deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. Just because you're not the best or even top 3 at your position doesn't mean you're not a Hall of Famer.
All right. See, now that's a different criteria, and I like that. Like, I like a different perspective than mine. So I'm all ears.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think you have to count a lot of things in. I think Frank Gore literally had to carry the 49ers for several years. I think the stats were here. I mean, 99 touchdowns. I think the longevity matters. People try to use, oh, well, he played for so many years. That's why he got 16,000 yards. Well, not a lot of running backs can last that long in the NFL.
Right. See, and that's what I'm thinking. Like, there are people that are like kind of like trying to put him down. I want to make it clear. I am not putting down anything that Frank Gore did. I think he had a terrific career. But again, we got to kind of separate the, like, you know, from the boom, like, you know what I'm saying? And you feel me? So that's
you know, I'm not one of those Niner fans who be, oh, like, I got to be super biased because I'm a 49er. You know, look, I don't even think I don't want to say that. I think Tom Brady is the GOAT. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not one of those 49er fans who just gonna, oh, he's the best, because he's a 49er. Like there's a lot of 49er fans who won't accept Tom Brady as the GOAT. And it's like, nah, Tom Brady's the GOAT. I think I think
Right,
it's
is.
very clear, but there are fans who still wouldn't consider him that. So I'm just, so for anybody who thinks I'm biased, no, I'm not biased. I'm just, laying out, the criteria. And yes, people do have different criteria, but I still think it's just very wild. Matter of fact, the guy you agree with, Vish, again, I wish you had him on the show today because I'd ate him alive. He said Curtis Martin wasn't a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, see, I disagree. I disagree with
I
that.
know, but
But
the
Fish
guy you're
never
agreeing
watched
with
Curtis Martin.
again, the guy you're agreeing with again wasn't even old enough to watch Curtis Martin play. So I don't even
Right.
know how you could say that somebody's not a Hall of Famer when you didn't
Well,
watch them play.
I'm not agreeing with Vish because Vish said it. I just responded to a tweet like, I don't think he is either. And then I got tied up in that whole web. Like that was just my independent opinion.
Yeah, no, I know. I just want to, like I said, I wish you had Vish on the show because I was ready for him. I was about to ask him his age, which I'm pretty sure I know is like he's around 23, 24, maybe even younger than that. I don't
I think
know,
he's younger
but
than that.
he definitely he definitely couldn't have watched Frank Gore like first 4 years. And even when I was younger, I mean, I watched football players. I wasn't thinking like, yeah, man, this dude is not that great. He's not a top 5 player in the league. Nah, bro. You too young to be having these crazy opinions. But yeah, Croc. So overall, I think, Frank Gore having 99 touchdowns. For most of those 9,000-yard seasons, he averaged about 4.3, 4.4 yards per carry. He literally carried the offense for several years. The Niners rode his back for several years. I think also, the 16,000 yards do matter. And you can look on that list. For anybody who doesn't think Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer, just look on that list and be like, dang, man, he's got 16,000 yards. Like Emmitt Smith, longevity is the reason why he passed up Barry Sanders. Now, we all know Barry Sanders is the GOAT, but longevity got Emmitt Smith the rush as got Emmitt Smith to be the Russian leader. So at the end of the day, I think when you lay it out, and nobody can ever say this like, oh well, Frank Gore rushed for 1,000 yards 9 times. Nobody's gonna ever say, well, that's not a Hall of Famer. Because even I asked you, Croc, I said, what other running backs ran for 1,000 yards 9 different times and didn't make the Hall of Fame? You're never gonna find that.
I just don't know. But my thing is, that's terrific. Did you ever think he was the best in the league? Or
No,
one of the best.
but again,
like one of the best.
but
Like I'm
that,
looking at you
that's
picked
flawed,
you picked
bro.
a random year and look at these guys that were all ahead. Again, Adrian Peterson, Alfred Morris, Marshawn Lynch, Jamar Charles, Doug Martin, Arian Foster, Stephen Ridley, CJ Spiller, Chris Johnson. Then you get to Frank Gore, and it's damn near like that
And
every
this is why
single year.
your criteria is flawed, because basically you could say somebody for 2 years was the best at their position, but then what did they do the rest? I love that you said this. Doug Martin, what, 2 years he really 2 years he probably had 2 good years in this league. Alfred Morris had about 3 to 4 good years in this league. That's it. That's
Right.
it.
So if that's but even then,
Consistency matters.
so if you want to say that, well, if you are top 10 at your position throughout your career, then you're a Hall of Famer. Then all right, yeah, he 100% is. But to me, if that's just the standard, then you're going to be letting in a lot of other guys as well.
I mean, I think it's not a lot of so not a lot of people, not a lot of running backs last that long. So you're not going to be letting in a lot of people. Not a lot of running backs is going to last for 10 to 12 years being consistently top 10 all the time. It won't work like that. So that's why I don't mind Frank Gore getting in, because we do agree he's not first ballot. He's probably going to have to wait until his mid-40s to get in. But at the end of the day, he's a Hall of Famer. And his longevity, his consistency is better than a lot of running backs that we've seen. And a lot of those running backs that you named on that list couldn't last like Frank Gore lasted.
All right, so if you want to say it's special because he lasted a long time, again, that's a different criteria, and maybe they take that into consideration. And if they do, then I understand why he's a Hall of Famer. But if you ask me, again, I watched those years, I'm watching all that, and it's like, well, he was never one of the best backs, but he got in because, oh, well, he was a good running back for a long time. All right, okay, I see that.
He was.
But I just thought that the Hall of Fame was a little different, like the Terrell Owens, the Randy Mosses, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I thought the Hall of Fame was. You know what I'm saying? I could be. I'm probably wrong.
But and that's the thing. I think
Calvin Johnson's, you know what I'm saying? Like LaDainian Tomlinson. Like I just thought, LT. I thought that's Hall of Fame running back.
I'm not even gonna say what I want to say about LT, and this is my sign. This is my sign that I need to sign off.
What do you want to say about LT?
No, I'm not saying it, Croc. You have a blessed day. I think when it comes down to it, Frank Gore consistently in the top 10, lasted longer than a lot of these running backs who had 3-4 good prime years. Frank Gore years extended. Like I said, you can't. There's not many running backs who had 9 years rushing for 1,000 yards, 99 touchdowns, over 16,000 yards, over 9 straight or 10 straight 1,200-yard seasons. Which
I know
every running
1,200 yards.
Every person on that list made the Hall of Fame. Whoever I forgot who pointed it out yesterday, but every running back on that list made the Hall of Fame. So
he ain't had no 10 straight 1,200-yard seasons.
No. It's from scrimmage, yards from scrimmage.
Okay.
He was in that list. But all right, Croc, I'm gonna let the other fans come.
I appreciate you coming on.
All right, bro.
All right, mate. At some point, we got to get that takeout of him on LT. You know what I'm saying? Because LT was that guy. Here we go. Got my guy Legs Gaming coming on. How you doing? Good morning.
What's up, big dog? How you doing?
I'm good. You got the views going still?
Yeah, sunset, so kind of
okay.
Blurry.
Wait, where you at?
I'm right here across the street from Port of San Francisco.
Okay, let's go.
Right here, Alcatraz, right over there. 17 floors down, right there. Living life on the edge.
All right, I see.
Hey, check this out. 3 people I want to mention. 1, first is a question. Do you think Tom Brady knew about the Deflategate before he won? Do you think he was knowledgeable of it?
I think he
was grabbing the ball.
Yeah.
It fell softer.
Yeah.
Is he a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Is Barry Bonds a Hall of Famer?
100%.
But a lot of people say no because he cheated and used steroids, right?
Allegedly.
That's the argument. Allegedly. Okay. Well, if Brady's a Hall of Fame, cheating, winning the Super Bowl, then Bonds cheated, allegedly. He should be in the Hall of Fame. And here we go. Frank Gore never cheated, never won, but he carried his team. He didn't have defenses carry him for most of his career. And I think if he accumulated all those yards and became the 3rd most yards running back, then he deserves it. He never cheated. He worked his ass off 16 years, proved his point, and did a lot that a lot of people couldn't do. So if people cheat and be considered as Hall of Famers, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame as well. I don't care about being the best for your particular year. He had an amazing career. And because of that, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. Just because of that right there.
All right. So here's another guy. And I want y'all in the chat, I want y'all to answer this too. All right. Talk about consistency. We talk about doing it over a long time. Picking up a bunch of stats and things like that. Awesome. London Fletcher. I can hear my echo in the background. I don't know if I can hear myself. There's like an echo. Or maybe put yourself on mute while talking and take yourself off. There we go. All right, so London Fletcher. London Fletcher, I believe, he played 16 years in the NFL. 16 years in the NFL, London Fletcher. Super Bowl champion, whatever. 2-time second team All-Pro, 4 Pro Bowls. Awesome. London Fletcher retired with the second most tackles in NFL history. 16 years. I believe him and Frank Gore played the same amount of years. Or it might be off 1 year. Both had a ton of statistics. Fletcher, the second most tackles. The only person in NFL history with more tackles than London Fletcher is Ray Lewis. 2-time second team All-Pro. Frank Gore got 1 team second team. Is London Fletcher a Hall of Famer? Let me hear it. Let me hear it. You can take yourself off mute now.
Okay. Because I'm backing my dude Gore, yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame. Biased. That's biased opinion. I can't say much about that, to be honest with you. But my boy Gore, he's getting in. Number 21, first jersey I bought for my son. Let's go. He's coming back to retire. I'm juiced about that. So, I mean, give it to Fletcher too. Less deserving guys are in.
All right. So, all right, I'm going to get you off. I appreciate you coming on. We're going to talk about this. I got my guy, Medic Mike, about to come on. So, that's my thing, right? You know, and we talk about all these things that, you know, Frank Gore, and it's great. And again, this is just a conversation. I don't want to push down on Frank Gore or kind of belittle his career. Oh my good, like one of my favorite guys to watch. I do believe that he means more for the 49ers than the rest. Because if you think about a lot of what people say when they bring up some of the stuff, like, man, carried the 49ers, did this, and he did. That stuff was terrific. That stuff was terrific. They gotta get London Fletcher in the Hall of Fame. It's a longevity, and shout out to my guy, Coach, with the contribution, content which they achieved their careers and how the public peers interpreted. Frank has the holy trinity: numbers, consistency, and culture. Frank was also winning teams. London, definitely a Hall of Famer. So the day they put London Fletcher in, that's the day I'm gonna be like, Frank Gore, Hall of Famer. Because I view their careers similarly. Where at no point will most people say, you know what, Fletcher was a top 3 backer in the league. There might be a lot of people on here that don't even know who London Fletcher is, right? But yeah, I don't know. And now I want to keep, and shout out to Coach, I appreciate you with the contribution. I want to keep quarterbacks out of it because I think that's different, right? Like quarterbacks, they pick up like all these yards over time, and you know it's different. They can pick up a bunch of yards because they're throwing from behind. It's a little different. So I mean, there are guys, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan. You know, will they be Hall of Famers? I don't know. Right? I don't know. So I want to keep the quarterbacks out of it. With your logic, Dan Marino is not a Hall of Famer, same player. I think if Dan Marino is one of the best quarterbacks of his time. Dan Marino was one of the best, right? Like if you go back in that time, did anybody consider Dan Marino a top 3 quarterback? My guy right here says, who the hell is not trying to let London Fletcher in? Apparently the Hall of Fame committee, because he ain't in. He ain't in. All right, here we go. I got my guy, Medic Mike. Medic Mike, man, good morning, bro. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great, man. So
Good.
And again, I have to keep repeating this because I know how people twist things. I know how people, and then they'll go post things and they block me and all type of stuff just because I believe that Frank Gore, like he was the man. Like I just also believe he meant more for the 49ers than how he was viewed amongst running backs year to year in his time. But if you're saying longevity is what gets him in, then I'm here. I'm listening to that argument. But go ahead.
All right. First off, I want to hear Chris's take on LT because I'm ready to go blow for blow with him on that one. Like we can roll on that one, but
Hey, Chris, if you hear that, come back in so we can get you y'all on together. But go ahead.
a lot of this comes down to people's personal criteria. So I see both sides of it. My heart wants to be like, yeah, he's getting in. But then my head kind of goes to where you're talking about. It's like, was he ever in that elite state? You know what I'm saying? Like he carried us. Absolutely. I think he was a legit running back. He was top 5 some years. Did he ever hit that top 3 echelon? Not really. But then it comes down to, do you value him being at that high level and that consistent level over a certain amount of time, especially at a position where there's a lot of attrition? I think that in itself holds a certain intrinsic value. Running back probably has, I would say, the shortest lifespan of any position in the NFL. Yep. And so when you look at that, there might be something to actually add that into a running back's value. Be like, man, he was able to maintain this, 1,000, 1,200, 1,400 all-purpose yards level of play over this amount of time. And so at running, if there's any position that's going to add value to when considering the Hall of Fame, I think running back is that position.
Okay.
Now,
that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead.
Now, looking at the Hall of Fame, do I think he's first ballot? No. I think that's reserved for the dudes like LT, for the dudes like T.O., which he didn't even get in first ballot. So I already kind of think the Hall of Fame is somewhat of a joke. But your Randy Moss, your Deion Sanders, your Palomalu's, your Ed Reeds, like those dudes. The dudes you look at and you be like, no, he was that guy. He was that guy. He was better than everybody else, when he was playing next to him. All his peers looked up to him. And so first ballot, no, I don't think he is. But there's some years where the Hall is slow. I think those are the years that Frank's going to have to look forward to try to get in, where you don't have those surefire, can't miss prospects. And I think those are the years he's going to have to get in. Now, me personally, I love Frank. I think he's a top 10 Niner of all time. I see some people saying top 5. Go back and do your history. We've got a lot of great players.
So you can't just throw that number out there and say, you got a list of guys. Who would you have ahead of him?
Oh, off top, you have Young, Montana, Rice, and Lott. That's a 4 lock. And then for me personally, Willis, T.O., Bryant Young. That's a top 7 right there. Mm-hmm. Those right there, that's a consistent first ballot to me. Brian didn't get in the first ballot. He got in this year, but those are 7 first ballot Hall of Famers that played for the Niners right there. Then I think you start looking at Frank after that. He's kind of in that next tier of players, which is why I don't think he's a first ballot, but I think he will eventually get in. Now, listening to your argument, your criteria sounds completely different than the Hall's criteria as well. So you look for that like high of highs, and one person I was thinking of when you were talking about it was Gale Sayers, who had a career-ending injury, I think, it was 5 or 6 years in. But when you look at his numbers and what he was doing, he was blowing people out the water. 200-yard rushing games, and you go look back at that grainy-ass footage from back then, he was still putting dudes on skates, Yeah. You could tell he was dynamic even back then. And so you're going for that high of high, and you're looking at, okay, how high did that wave hit as far, how long did it travel? At what height, And so those two criteria, depending on where you're at and what you value more, is that kind of is going to dictate what your answer is going to be.
So here we go. And I've seen other people, they're putting names in here because you kind of talked about your top 10 49ers, and that could be a show for another day as well. Yeah. But Alden Smith, Frank Gore, definitely Frank Gore, right? Now, Frank Gore didn't have as much highs as, he didn't have as much highs as Alden Smith. Right? Alden Smith, it was like, damn, best pass rusher we've ever seen, right?
He came on like a gangbuster. He was ridiculous. What did he have? 19 and a half sacks his second year in? Like 14 his first, and I think 19 and a half his second. Like that's stupid. Like you were 3 sacks off the record.
What about our guy Joe Staley?
Love Joe. Do I think he's a Hall of Famer? No. I think he's that one tier below. Great career, bookend left tackle for us. And So we're ingrained with the players, so we see their personality. Joe's got a great personality. Joe's someone you look at. It's hard not to like Joe. If you follow the Niners and you see Joe on and off the field, it's hard not to like Joe off the field. And so we see these players and we get invested in them, and then we're like, "There's no way he's not a Hall of Famer. No way he's not a Hall of Famer." And obviously, there's some bias that goes there. And I love Joe Staley. I love Joe. I wanted us to get a ring just so he could get one, But yeah, Alden Smith, would he make the top 10? I don't know about that. But Frank Gore is definitely top 10. Joe, I think, is going to round out about number 10, 11, somewhere around there.
We got our guy Derek here. He says Joe Staley was a top 3 tackle almost every season he played.
He was
really good.
Top 3. He was really, really good. And I think he's a fringe. He's right there on the fringe. Like, if I had to say, because I think of like Joe Thomas, who was, he was pretty much the poster boy for left tackles. You've had Trent Williams playing in this league a long time. You've had a lot of good, left and right tackles. So, I love the guy, but I also realize I'm a Niner fan, and I'm probably biased towards Joe. So I'd say he's one of those fringe players. If he got in, fantastic. If he didn't, I understand why.
The crazy thing is he did play 13 years and 3-time second team All-Pro.
Was he ever first team?
Never first team.
Yeah.
But Frank Gore was never first team either. He had 1 second team All-Pro, never first team.
That's true. One thing about Gore, he played with some great running backs. Like, he had a stint. If you look, Adrian Peterson, you got to argue him as a top 5 running back all time. Like, great player. You had Marshawn Lynch, one of the most dominant backs of his time. You had Arian Foster, who had a short stint, but those highs, which, he led the league in rushing. Was it 2 separate years? But, he had Clinton Portis, Chris Johnson. Like, he had so many good running backs come through and hit, and peaked early and then flamed out. But he just outlasted all of them. Plus, Frank Gore, he was a total package too. 3-down back who could pass protect. He's still one of the best pass protecting backs I've ever seen. Good receiver, good running back, never lost. He was literally, if you had consistency, Frank Gore was consistency. Which is crazy coming off 2 ACL injuries in college, but he was the model for consistency.
Yeah. All right, man. You put up a very good argument, and now I get it. I feel like, I don't know, there was something that you said that kind of just clicked, but ultimately, and I saw some people say it while you were talking as well, it's the longevity which people typically don't have at the running back position, and then that's what's going to help him get in. Not so much that he was ever one of the best.
Yeah, I think it's almost creating another category for that almost durability, specifically for running backs. And I think you have to add some weight because of the position and because of the history of the position.
Gotcha. All right, Medic Mike, man. Appreciate you having you on, bro.
Thanks for having me on, man.
All right. Here we go. Got my guy K Nice coming on. K Nice, good morning, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm pretty good. I'm feeling good after my Jayhawks won it last night. I'm on a high right now. I don't really have to. I don't know how I'm gonna follow that. My old boy pretty much put it all out there. Pretty much how I was feeling. I agree with him. I think the Hall of Fame voting is a joke. I think it's some bias involved in it. I agree. I kind of see both sides. I think Frank Gore will be like a second ballot guy. I think that those first ballot guys are elite of the elite. Like, the fact that T.O. wasn't the first ballot to me, that was a joke because.
But we all know why. Like, we all know that was some personal vendetta they had against him, and it took him a few years. We knew that was a joke. But aside from that, everybody knew. He's getting in because he's one of the best. Right. And again, maybe my standards, again, my criteria is different, I guess, for how I think that people are supposed to be able to get into the Hall of Fame. It's almost like getting your jersey retired out of high school, right? Where it's like, man, they retired this guy's jersey. And it's like, yeah, well, it's the best motherfucker we've ever seen come through this high school.
Right.
And that's what I think of when I think of Hall of Fame. I'm thinking like, man, like this dude, like when he, like, that was people were like, oh my goodness, he was the best during this time, or oh man, it was him, this guy, and this guy, like they're the best. And I just don't think that you have that conversation about Frank Gore, which I think he was the best for the 49ers, right? Where it was like, man, Frank Gore, man, 49er fans is like, man, we love him. Where would we be without him? But I'm curious to know like how the outsiders view him. Like let's say this. If you go year by year and you list 4 running backs and you're all right, who you got to vote on who's the best running back. I would say if you go year by year throughout his entire career, he would probably get the least amount of votes in that as it pertains to other guys that he played with or against. Even throughout that time, there were a lot of better running backs.
Right.
I mean, there were a lot of different running backs moving up and down and stuff like that. And I don't think at any time he would be viewed as that. But I could be wrong.
No, I mean, if you look back at his statistics, I mean, he was only top 3 in rushing maybe 2 out of all his years. I mean, like I said, the thing that is going for him is his longevity. But I agree with your point in that sense. He wasn't. If you look at a lot of his years, he wasn't considered the best back of that year. Whether that other guy had one great year and then he fizzled out. But that's the thing that people got to recognize too is you do have to look at it year from year. I mean, just because a guy was really, really good one year and then he falls off that next year doesn't mean, oh, he's a great back of all time. Like you have to look at it in a sense year to year. And those really good guys are like, for instance, I want to hear old dudes take on LT because his first 8 years he rushed 1,000 plus. Then his first 9 years he had 10 plus touchdowns every year. Had 28 one year. And then if you look at his receiving yards, I mean, like I really want to hear his take on LT because LT is a great example of every year he was one of the top 3 backs. You had an argument every year when you looked at his name. Yeah, he probably might be in that top 3 every year. So I mean, yeah, it's all based off of people.
And I ain't even saying you got to be in the top 3 every year. I'm just saying like for like a 3-year stretch where you consider like one of the best in the league. And I don't know if Frank Gore ever got to that level.
Yeah, I think Frank is going to get in. Based off the current criteria, I think he's going to get in. But if you had to break it up in categories, he would be like that second, borderline third tier guy back that gets in. Like as good as he was, he'd be that he gets that longevity thing definitely because the running back's longevity lifespan in the league is not very high. So I give him that, but he'd probably be in that second tier. Then he isn't one of the elite. Because I kind of agree with you how the standards should be. I think the standards for that first ballot or those top guys, like you got to be dominant for a long period of time, or even just that for a good amount of period of time. I mean, like Barry would be a great example. Barry was dominant for his short period before he retired. But looking at Barry's time, we can easily say, man, if Barry would have kept playing, like that record probably would have been, no one would have caught it. But he was good enough for that he was the best back for that what, how many years he do? 8 years?
I saw something crazy, like he played in like 80 less games than Frank Gore or something crazy, but like only has like 100 less yards, or it was something crazy like that.
He's top tier. He should be top tier. Dion, top tier. Jerry Rice, top tier. Like guys like that, to me, there should be some type of higher standard for those top tier guys. And I guess you could say it's first ballot, second ballot, but we all know a lot of that can be biased on how they pick who gets in and who gets out. But man, I don't want to take up too much of your time, Croc. I appreciate you letting me on. I'm gonna continue to enjoy my day. My Jayhawks.
All right, man. Shout out to the Jayhawks. Knocked off North Carolina last night.
Yep. All right, man.
All right, you have a good one. Here we go. Got a special guest coming on right now. Real quick, wanted to get to this contribution. All right. You say all the time people can win different field. Frank Gore does with longevity. With that being said, I do think there should be a different hall for greatest of all times. Well, I think the hall is for greatest of all time, where it's supposed to be. But I hear what you're saying. Listen, if the argument for Frank Gore is longevity, I think that's how can I put it? I'm trying to figure out the right way to put it. It's like, man, you know what? You did a good job. You know, we'll let you in. Not because we felt like you were ever the best or one of the best running backs in the league while you're playing, but you played for a long time, so we'll get you in. So if they do, like, that's kind of how I feel about it. But I get it though. I get it. That's the argument. I get it. I don't want to act like I don't think Frank Gore is really good. Here we go. Got my guy Jesse coming on. Jesse, man, good morning. Jesse,
good morning.
Jesse, am I tripping?
Well, hold on. Let me ask the chat this question, and then I'll jump into basically having your back here. But chat, just a simple yes or no. Does Tiki Barber deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? That's all I need. Not why, whatever. Just yes or no. Croc, I couldn't let you die on this hill alone, even though I got a bone to pick with you because you threw me under the bus yesterday on Twitter, made sure that I was catching strays over here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, my thing was because they were like, well, they threw out a name. They're like, oh, well, Larry Fitzgerald, and I'm like, well, Jesse doesn't think he's supposed to be in there. So I had to. So I didn't throw you on the butt, but I wanted to make sure that it was like, look, there are people that don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Like, it's not like this is just like a slam dunk type thing. But go ahead.
For sure. Okay, so I'm putting people together in the chat, and you know how many people are saying no? Basically everybody on Tiki Barber. Everybody's saying no. And these are all the same people I would imagine that said, yes, Frank Gore absolutely deserves to be in. And let me tell you something. Tiki Barber played 6 less seasons than Frank Gore. He's only 2,500 total yards behind him. 4 times this man went over 1,300 yards, and he was a first-team All-Pro. Frank Gore went over 1,300 yards one time, I believe, in his career. So if you're saying that without hesitation, Tiki Barber does not deserve to get in and Frank Gore does, I rest my case. Like, what else is the argument? Because I hear people talk about Jerome Bettis. Jerome Bettis was a 2-time first-team All-Pro, a second-team All-Pro, and 4 times over 1,300 yards rushing. Half this chat probably doesn't even understand that he played for a different team other than the Steelers. They remember old Jerome Bettis. No. Jerome Bettis was a dog back in the day, right? And the other one that I hear is Curtis Martin. All right, let's talk about Curtis Martin. First of all, he led the league in rushing for a season. Frank Gore never did that. First team All-Pro one time, 2-time second team All-Pro, 5 times over 1,300 yards. It's not like he was just barely going over 1,000. And every year in his career, he started out his career, I believe, with, I think it was 9 or 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons. The only reason he didn't get there in his final year is because he only played 12 games. Otherwise, he would have gone over again and ended his career every season in the league over 1,000 yards rushing. To me, Martin and Bettis are a step above Gore, just based off of the things that they were able to accomplish in the league. And Tiki Barber is more the measurement of what we should be looking at. And if you're saying with a resounding, easily no, Tiki Barber doesn't deserve to get in, and then saying that there isn't a debate and Gore should get in, I don't understand that argument, because Tiki Barber did some amazing things in this league, but I agree, he doesn't deserve to get in. Now, that's the other problem, is people think it's a personal thing, or you don't think Frank Gore is good if you say that he's not getting into the Hall of Fame or shouldn't get into the Hall of Fame. There are other ways to celebrate players. I love Frank Gore, one of my favorite players of all time. One of the first jerseys that I personally bought with my own money. I love Frank Gore. But Hall of Fame to me is a different level. Will he get in? 100%. Does he deserve to get in? That is a different conversation. And you brought up London Fletcher. Well, we just watched Mills get in over what was it? Patrick Willis. That right there told me that the Hall of Fame is different, because I remember growing up that the Hall of Fame was the elite of the elite. The basketball Hall of Fame is very, very different. Even the baseball Hall of Fame is very, very different. A lot of guys get in for different reasons. Football Hall of Fame, I always thought was reserved for like the elite of the elite. But you've seen some of these other guys get in over the last few years that basically open the floodgates, and we're going to see a lot of guys that I don't believe deserve to get in. And I'll throw out another position just real quick. Everybody talks about Isaac Bruce and some of these other receivers. What about Derek Mason? 19th all time in all purpose yards at the receiver position. Very, very good player. Went over 1,000 yards like 8 times in his career, something like that. Does he deserve to get in? So that's where the conversation starts to begin for me. Is it's not the Martins and the Bettises, it's the Barbers and the Masons. That's where I put Frank Gore personally.
Well, I have no. If anybody wants to come on and kind of have an argument against anything that he said, feel free. Here is the link right now. I have a couple people here, or one person here. My guy Andre. Is it okay if I bring people on to kind of I guess debate this with you? Here we go. We got Andre Williams coming on. Andre, good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome, man. Hey, I'm kind of in a rush, so I'm just popping on. I'm gonna alley hoop this to you guys. Maybe you guys can chat about it a little bit. But one thing I didn't hear anyone talk about when trying to advocate for Frank Gore going to the Hall is level of difficulty, right? Like, I feel like for positions like quarterback, obviously, excuse me, and wide receiver, the rule changes over the years have affected them positively, right? Just the physicality that they allow defenses to play with now, a physicality against the quarterback when you're sacking them and rushing them, this and that, right? But for running back, it's pretty much the same, right? And I would argue that if you look at somebody like an Emmitt Smith, was never the biggest, was never the fastest, was never the strongest, the most agile. He never had any elite traits. I feel like it was his offensive line that he had the great opportunity to run behind for many years. It was the threat of the pass, because you got, Troy Aikman, you got Jay Novacek, you got Michael Irvin, right? So he's probably running against lighter boxes sometimes, right? Whereas Frank Gore, for a majority of his career outside of the hardball years, you can say that I don't think he ever had the opportunity to run behind even a top 5 offensive line, right? And he did what he did. So for me, and then the yards, right? Stats off top. I mean, there's no way that he's 3rd overall all time in yardage, but doesn't get in, right? So like Jesse said, he's going to get in. First ballot, I don't think so, because again, he's not like elite. There was no elite traits that he offered, but I feel like during his time, it was level of difficulty and what he was able to accomplish during that time. Number one, and number two, I think Frank Gore was, if you ask his peers, was the epitome of football, right? Like if you're a football guy, you cannot not like Frank Gore, right? Like the physicality he played with, his vision, I mean, his balance, I mean, the work that he put in practice. I mean, the guy was a grinder, and he only missed, 15 games in 16 seasons? Like, that's crazy. So anyway, for me, it's level of difficulty and then just what he epitomized as a player. So I got to go, y'all.
Can I push back real quick on the Emmitt Smith thing?
Back. Come on, push back.
So here's the thing with Emmitt Smith, and people forget this. Emmitt Smith was an old man, 35 years old. He went and played for the Arizona Cardinals. This man would have rushed for 1,000 yards if he'd played a 16-game season. He played 15 games, rushed for 937 yards in Arizona when Arizona was a desolate organization at 35 years old. Emmitt Smith was better than what people want to give him credit for. I know the offensive line, I get that. And as 49er fans, we don't like Emmitt Smith. I don't think Emmitt Smith, to me, is a top 5 running back of all time. He's just outside the top 5. And I think the line plays a big part in that. But at 35 years old, to go to the Arizona Cardinals, rush for 937 yards in 15 games. I mean, I don't know what else you got to prove at that point of how good you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking it away from him. I mean, he's definitely a great running back. I think I agree with you. I mean, that's impressive. I just think, again, if we're, because what Croc was saying earlier, was talking about the elite, was he ever a top 5 guy, or I forgot what you said. What'd you say, Croc?
Basically like, in any season, was he considered a top 5 back? And I think most people would say 2006. I think outside of that, it starts to get a little murky.
It does, correct, and I agree. But I think he would always be considered top 10 for probably like a good first maybe 7, 8 years of his career. I would say maybe 6 years, right? But yeah. So anyway, that's it, guys. I gotta hop off, man. But maybe y'all could chat about that a little bit.
Have a good
I
one, man.
appreciate
All
you,
right,
man.
thanks, guys. All right, bye.
I will say, looking at Emmitt Smith, kind of those last few years,
It was a volume thing.
not great in the yards per carry aspect. Same as Frank Gore. Frank Gore think because he ran for 1,000 with the Colts, but he was averaging like 3.5 yards per carry over those few years with the Colts. So it wasn't the best version.
And that's what I mean. I think that off the top of my head, I think when Emmett did it and he rushed for the 937, it was like 3.5. So it was around the same. 35 years old though. That's what I'm saying. If Emmitt Smith was 27 and playing for that organization, you don't think he would have been going over 1,000, 4 yards per carry? Like, yeah, he would have. He was a good player, just like Gore would have. That Gore's a good player. That's, again, I hate even having to do this.
Yeah, well, it's going to come off
me,
as if you're like hating on him, or if you
right, because there is no in between. You get emotion, you get fandom in it, and I understand all those things. Like, as far as being a Frank Gore fan, yeah, I'm a Frank Gore fanboy, but I also have to try to keep it real in what my opinion is. And I can't say that somebody like London Fletcher doesn't deserve to get in and then say, well, Frank Gore, yeah, for sure, he deserves to get in, because they're very, very similar as far as what they bring to the table. So, I can't say that I don't think Fitzgerald's a top 10 wide receiver of all time and then say, well, Frank Gore deserves to, you know what I mean? Like, I have to remain consistent in what I'm saying. Otherwise, I'm just saying things to say them. And that's not, to me, like, that's not the way to do it.
Here's something. There have been some people that have talked about, well, look at, who he played with and look at his quarterbacks and things like that. And I'm looking at Adrian Peterson, 2012, when he led the league in rushing. His quarterback was Christian Ponder. Started every game. And they literally rolled Adrian Peterson to the playoffs. He ran for almost 2,100 yards. So to me, and again, he ain't AP. Well, I'm just saying, like, when, just like Frank Gore did in 2006, like, when you do have those type of when you are like that guy, you kind of do those things consistently. But again, I don't want to push down on him. Here we go. We got more people coming on right now. I'm actually going to add 2 guys to the stream. Got my guy Skids and got my guy Terradome. Welcome. You guys are both on. So feel free. Any hate, directed towards Jesse.
No hate towards Jesse. I watch both of you guys while I'm here at work, but I don't agree with the Tiki Barber reference in general, because you were saying I was looking up his stats career-wise. He's only got 15,000 total scrimmage yards in his 6 years, where Frank Gore has over 19,000. So there's a big difference in the yardage there. And in his years, Tiki's got 10,000 yards rushing, and then Frank Gore's got his 16 on his rushing. So if he had a few more years, would he produce 6 more seasons at 1,000 yards to tie Frank or pass Frank?
Yeah, but the thing is when you're a running back, you have multiple ways to get it. You can get it receiving or you can get it rushing. And so, 6 less years, I think that he could have done it, right? But the point is that even then,
Terradome disagrees with you.
Frank Gore never reached the heights that Barber did. Like, Barber, I could arguably say that Barber's 3 best seasons are better than Frank's single best season. He was a first-team All-Pro. That Frank Gore never reached those heights, right? So that's kind of where I'm saying is he has longevity and he has some of the individual season accolades as well.
Me just pushing back a little bit, right? Just, and to play devil's advocate, obviously I'm on the same side as you with this, but let's say, people might say, well, All-Pro is voted on by writers and things like that, So that's why I put it in the fans' hands. And that's why I'm always asking them, did you ever consider him a top 5 running back, or for how many years? And I think most people would go off, well, yeah, 2006. But outside of that, most people in most years would say, no, he wasn't a top 5 back.
I'd have to look at it off the top of my head, but I think I'm going to look at the stats. Tiki Barber for sure went over 1,800 yards That's a guarantee. He went over 1,500 3 seasons in a row. He went for 1518, 1860, and 1662. Back to back seasons. Again, 4 times over 1,300 yards. Frank Gore only did that 1 time. So, that's the thing is Tiki has an argument too. Like if that's what we have to start looking at. If these guys are for sure, if Frank Gore is a surefire Hall of Famer, you have to start looking at guys like Tiki Barber. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
Where you are in the world, but wherever you are, God bless you. God keep you, and let him have his face shine upon you and lift you up with his countenance. The question we ask ourselves is, could the story of the NFL and professional football be told without the person that we're in question of? Frank Gore will be eligible in 5 years to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I was in there in 2010 when the great Jerry Rice went into Canton, Ohio. I was there, 1,549 receptions, 22,895 yards, 208 touchdown. Crawford, Mississippi. The jersey is right behind me, born October 13th, 1962, 2 days before my wife, glory to God, D. Tara, let me shout her out. I'm looking at a list right now. That list says Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, Frank Gore.
Oh
no.
We lost Tara though.
Oh no.
I got to get back to work, so I'm going to pull out of the studio.
All right, man.
All right,
Have a good one.
Sanders.
Oh, here it is. Teradome, we lost you. We lost the video at least. I think we might be able to hear you still.
Yeah. He was going in. It was like,
I'm
hold on.
going in. All right.
Oh, okay. There we go.
go.
We got you. Yeah, we got you
All
back.
right.
So you got to start off because you with the list. You start off.
Okay.
With,
that name.
Emmitt Smith.
The name say. I'm gonna start that name again. Number 1 said Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, Frank Gore, Barry Sanders, Adrian Peterson, Curtis Martin, LaDainian Tomlinson. First ballot, go right on through. I call him first ballot Frank. The average per carry is 4.3. He played in a Super Bowl. He is from the U. It is all about the U. Let me run down that roster from the 2001 U. Let me throw some names at you. Willis McGahee, Najee Davenport, Andre Johnson. Let me throw Ken Dorsey at you. Clinton Portis, Frank Gore, Jared Payton, that Walter Payton's son. The story of the NFL cannot be told without this man. This is a very important man. This man overcame 2 ACL tears and had a career of longevity and played in some Super Bowls. He didn't have any off the field issues, and he was a locker room man, a leader, and wore the C on his chest. Didn't take any quarters and gave none. Chris Berman named him the inconvenient truth from the Al Gore film, because he did a little wordplay and a little spin on that Al Gore because he was Frank Gore. I simply call him first ballot Frank Gore because we could put it in his hands, and with a 4.3 average, you can go ahead and give it to him 3 times. And if my math is right, you need 10 yards for a first down. We could get somewhere around 13 yards if we go ahead and give it to Big Bad Frank. That's one of the most, I'd say one of the hardest positions. Cornerback is actually the hardest position in football. I think Croc can attest. The most important would be quarterback, but for longevity's sake, running back, they don't even use a bell cow running back like that anymore. You probably won't even see it again because we use running back by committee, or we utilize it out of the backfield most of the time, and we don't even have fullbacks. Use check is probably of a dying breed We don't even use fullbacks anymore to block for him like that. We run running back by committee. He's going to go in, and I can attest right now, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer because he is that dude. I'm saying that right now. Real football, a real man, Frank Gore. There's no discussion, there's no deliberation, there's no speculation, there's no hesitation. That was the dude. Don't let the stuff mar you up about, well, should he be in the Hall of Fame, him and Han? Don't let the past discretions and the past mess up about what the Hall of Fame did and how they messed up. It's a travesty that Roger Craig didn't go in 2010. He should have been in a long time ago. It's a travesty how they did T.O. and made him wait. He should have been first ballot. He's third on the list on, I think it's receptions or touchdowns. It's a travesty that London Fletcher is not in, and they played little games or whatever they did. But don't let all of that mess you up because Frank may not get in. He deserves to be in. He will be in and should be in. Can I get some type of witness on what I'm saying? Have I convinced you? Have I done it sufficiently?
I got to be honest. I got to be honest. When you were going through that list, I was saying to myself, one of these guys is not like the others. That's just me personally, just from watching him play.
He on that list.
I know. I get it. I understand it. He's got the longevity for sure. Here's the other thing that people throw out, and I think that this is a good argument. People talk about the all-decade team, but I want to be clear about the all-decade team as well. Larry Fitzgerald made an all-decade team over Hopkins. And Larry Fitzgerald is a good receiver, but for that time period was not near the level that Hopkins was throughout that decade. So the all-decade team is a nice accolade, but if people want to push back on all pros, I certainly can push back on all-decade teams.
We got Medic Mike in here, so I know he has something to say too.
But before Mike gets in, you don't think that that's a kind of subjective thing to get on a list, a la like a popularity list of some sort, something that excites you and amuses you and electrifies you? Ooh, he's this, he's that. Ooh, I like him a little bit more. Let me put him on the list. A la Steve Nash won a couple of more MVPs than the great Kobe Bryant, who has 2 jerseys retired on my wall right here. I remember Steve Nash getting a couple of more MVPs than Kobe did at one time. But would we really take Steve Nash over Kobe Bryant because he won a couple more MVPs?
No, but I also watched him play, right? Like when you gave your list of guys, to me, like watching these guys, Frank Gore was not on their level, right? So we can talk about what he accumulated, but when I just watched him play, I don't go, oh man, he was as good as AP or Barry or Peyton or Brown. I mean, Jim Brown's the only guy that when he walks into the Hall of Fame meetings, everybody gets up and claps. The only man, right? Like Frank Gore is not on the level of those other guys that you mentioned. That's my opinion. And that's the whole thing is even the Hall of Fame, it's a popularity thing. T.O. wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's a travesty because of the media members didn't like him, whatever. The whole thing is a popularity contest. That's really what it is. And you know what I really wish? I wish I don't remember when it started, but the NFL players that do their top 100 list every single season, I'd be curious to see some of those years where they ranked Frank Gore compared to some of his peers, the other running backs. I would love to know what those guys would have said then, because I think players hold more weight in a lot of this. Guys that played against him that have no dog in the fight, not teammates, anything like that. Guys that actually went against all the great running backs during that time, what they would say about Frank Gore, not the person, but the actual player, because we know he's a top-notch Hall of Fame person. There is no doubt about that.
100%.
I got a take to give some perspective on Jesse's Tiki Barber take. So
go ahead.
You talked about Tiki Barber having the highest. First off, you're making the same argument as Croc was, basically saying that the high of highs is more valuable than that longevity and that sustained excellence over time. You have to look at this is why you can't box score scout. You have to look at the entirety of the offense. The 49ers offense had less than 4,000 total yards in 2007. Frank Gore had 1,500 of them. Look at that percentage-wise. How much was he actually carrying that offense? Go back to the year before. The 49ers had 4,700 yards of offense. Frank Gore had over, I believe it was close to 2,000 all-purpose. We're talking about over 40% of the offense's production alone. So when you talk about the totality and actually carrying the team, that's a way to actually actualize that in the statistics. Now, Tiki Barber, his two best years, 2005, 2006, his offense had 5,700 and 5,200 yards. Think about that. 1 year he had 5,700 yards. The Niners didn't even crack 4,000 one of those years. So when you look at the totality of it and actually what they were pulling for what's around them, that's a way to bring all of that into perspective. Tiki Barber had 2000 to 2006 as his prime years. Frank Gore also rushed for 4.5 average with the Niners. I want to put that in there because his last 6 years actually brought his average down. It was 4.5 yards with the Niners. So we need to bump that up a little bit. And that was over 9-10 years.
Wow.
So
Wow.
look at,
so let me bring a little bit more color to what you were saying. His lifetime or the duration of his career, we're looking at a 4.3 average. But you're saying when he was with the Niners, it was actually 4.5 of an average. And you're saying he was going for 40% of what the Niners were doing of the offense. He was 40% of that offense as opposed to the raw number of what Tiki was doing, which was probably closer to a quarter of what their offense was asking him to do.
In regards to 2006 and 2007, yes, he was about 40% of their offense, maybe 38, 39%. And for the duration of the Niners' career, yes, 4.5 yard average.
So
that's why I believe that Frank Gore should 100% be Hall of 49ers and build a statue of him, retire his number, because he was so great for the 49ers.
So a defense could look at Frank Gore and say, I know that's 40% of their offense. We got to look at him and stop him every down because they only got this one guy. And 4 times out of 10, number 21's getting the ball. But with Tiki, we can look at some other things around here, some other threats around here. That's saying even more. Thank you, brother.
But okay, so then I think that can also be used as an indictment against, because if we're going to make concessions, well, if he had this or if he had that, or if I put him in this situation, he'd be able to do this or that. You can't necessarily say that. And I mean, that didn't stop Barry Sanders from being the best all time. That man had no offensive line his whole career. That man was playing with scrubs his whole career. And that didn't stop him from being the best of all time. It didn't stop Adrian Peterson, who was in just as bad of a situation many of those years, from being much better than Frank Gore. So yes, his situation may not have been quote unquote as ideal as Tiki. And by the way, I want to be clear, Tiki is not a Hall of Famer to me. I'm just saying if we're going to say Frank Gore for sure absolutely needs to get in, then you can't look at Tiki and be like, nope, never deserves to get in, because he had some accolades that deserve to be looked at. But when you look at Adrian Peterson, you look at some of these other guys that had less than ideal situations, it didn't stop them from being top 2, top 3 in their era year after year after year after year. But it did stop Frank Gore, which again goes back to the original point. Is he an elite of the elite? That's where I say Hall of Fame, no. Great player, yes.
I feel like
I'm not trying to stop that.
Real quick,
All I'm saying is I just read off a list. Including those names. That's all I'm saying.
In 16 years, though, Barry Sanders did it in 10.
All those names that we just talked about, Frank Gore was amongst those names. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the best backs, from year to year, a lot of times a lot of them are like kind of the offense, right? Look at Christian McCaffrey and what he was doing with Carolina when they were having inconsistent quarterback play, but it was like, man, we can lean on him, and he was really their entire offense. I mean, we could say some of that for Derrick Henry as well, who everyone knows Derrick Henry's getting the ball, and he runs for 2,000 yards. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so a lot of times the guys, when they are kind of putting up some of those numbers, they are a huge part of the offense, aside from maybe Tiki, who Jesse also said does not believe is currently a Hall of Fame player.
But that feeds right back. Well, first off, those are outliers, Jesse. Barry Sanders. My coach used to say, watch someone's hips, shoot for the hips, unless they're Barry Sanders. He's the only person that can actually move his hips. Only person on. And then Adrian Peterson recovered from a torn ACL and rushed for 2,000 yards. Those are extreme outliers that you gave. And Croc, I agree, and I think that also speaks to it because McCaffrey's hurt and Derrick Henry just got used up. And Gore kept doing it. And so, and Jesse, I don't know if you were here for my earlier take, I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I said I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but do I think he's going to get in? Yes, I do think he's going to get in. And it was because of those reasons that I stated. And so.
And I agree. He's going to get in. Like, he is going to get in. I understand all of that. He's absolutely going to get in. There is no argument on whether he will or he won't. I'm 100% with you. And it's not, I'm going to be happy when he does. Like, this is a 49er. I'm happy for that. You see everything behind me. I got all these signed things sitting behind me, all these 49er things. Like, I'll be happy when he does, right? Because if some of these other guys are getting in that we talked about, then when Frank Gore does, I'm going to celebrate it. But to me, my criteria is different, right? And that's fine. Like, this is where the opinion comes in. This is where it's all opinion, right? And that's what's great about this. And that's what's great about football in general. Everything is opinion based. Most of it is anyways, how you look at a certain stat over another one, how you view this player over this player or vice versa. And I think that's what makes it great. I just love debating, to be real. And what's funny is yesterday when that space was open, there was a Twitter space that started this whole thing with Eric and Vish. And so I jumped in because one of them was talking, I think it was Vish, was talking reckless about Curtis Martin. I'm like, hold on a second. So I got in to just defend Curtis Martin and get down. And then Croc's like, well, hold on. Do you think Frank Gore's a Hall of Famer? I'm like, in my estimation, no. And now all of a sudden, boom, here I am roped into the whole thing. So I love it.
Oh, I'm the same way. And it's a travesty that Roger Craig, the original Marshall Faulk, has not been in the Hall of Fame. And if I was there to debate, and a lot of it goes into who is pushing forth to get him in. The sports writer that fights in the room for him, I could get Roger Craig into the Hall of Fame. I know I could.
Well, and you talk about telling the story of the league. Roger Craig was like the original of 1,000 and 1,000, right? Yeah. You can't because a lot of these guys, the LTs, the Falks, and some of these other great players wouldn't have been able to do what they do without somebody paving the way and letting them see that. So to me, Roger Craig, I think for that reason, when you say I can't tell the story of the league without this man, I would argue that goes more towards Roger Craig than it does Frank Gore. I mean, yes, Frank Gore has the overall stats, like the accumulation, but I mean, I can pull that out and tell the story of the league without him, in my opinion.
You can't tell it without catfish, and Frank Gore has the story to tell. You can't tell it without the inconvenient truth. Frank Gore, first ballot. Frank Gore is going into the Hall of Fame. I will see to it. Frank Gore goes in.
I would say Roger Craig Roger Craig is not a Hall of Famer. Roger Craig literally only had, I think, 1,000 or 2,000 yard rushing. At the end of the day, at those times, running backs, they were getting a lot of carries. They were rushing for like 1,000 yards every single year. He had 1 year rushing over 1,000 yards. Yes, the 1,000 and 1,000 is good, and I understand it. But I was hearing Aponte say, "Oh, his impact was more than Frank Gore." Look, I understand. Yes, he was the first guy who can be. He was very versatile. But at the end of the day, it wasn't like he was consistently hitting 1,000, or even 900, 1,000. Like, he had 1 year where he did that, and it was great. It was excellent. But Roger Craig, barely was. I mean, he's getting 500, 600, 700 yards rushing. You know what I'm saying?
Roger Craig has more rings than Ringling Brothers. He was asked to do
The
that.
rings don't matter because the rings was won. The rings was won
Bill
by Joe
Walsh called
Montana.
him catfish
Those
because
rings
he
was
could
won by Joe
catfish the
Montana.
balls.
So
We
don't
used
you
to
can't
call
say
him
rings.
Superman.
You
Number
can't bring in the
33 from
rings.
Nebraska. Him and Rathman used to do things that they are using now. The West Coast offense was built on Roger Craig coming out of the backfield and skinning you up. He was on the all-decade team. He's the only member on the all-decade team that's not in the Hall of Fame from the San Francisco 49ers. The only thing besmirching him is a fumble wherein if we would have gotten that fumble and went in against the New York Giants, we would have three-peated and been the only team to have three-peated in the NFL. That's the only thing really holding him back.
Yeah, I mean that all sounds nice, and I like the way you put it. I think you're a preacher. You sound like a preacher, and I like you. I love when you come up here and you get your intros and you say little scriptures. I trust me, I love it. But I'm sorry, but you're wrong, my brother. Look, his impact was great. I love the impact and everything. But at the end of the day, you got to look at the numbers. Numbers matter. It's not just when I was talking about Frank Gore, it's not just about longevity. As a matter of fact, I got to get on Jesse. Jesse, I love you, Jesse. You're my guy. Jesse is the one who gets to see all my graphics before anybody. So Jesse, don't take any slight to this. But I can't listen to somebody who says Larry Fitzgerald is not a top 10 receiver of all time. I can't take your opinion serious when you say Frank Gore is not a Hall of Famer.
Hold on, Jesse. I need to know who Jesse's top 10 receivers are. Because sometimes when you lay it out there, it's what I'm saying, you can make an argument for it. So who are your top 10 receivers?
No, there's no argument on that one. But lay it out.
There could be. Because if you look at, off rip, right? Off rip, you got, Rice, Owens, Moss. Then you start adding guys like Megatron. Do you think that Fitzgerald is better than
Chris Carter? Yes.
Okay, Chris Carter. Maybe some people don't think he's a top 10 receiver.
Julio Jones. Tim Brown.
Julio Jones.
I'm a Michael
Julio's in the top 10. Julio's in the top 10.
I think Fitz is better than. I think he's better than both of them.
Larry Fitzgerald is way better than Michael Irvin.
Way better.
Okay, so hold on.
Michael Irvin was the playmaker. He was
a playoff playmaker, but he was cool. But Larry Fitzgerald was much better than him. I'm sorry.
If they got to throw that Hail Mary in the Super Bowl, I had confidence Fitzgerald was going to moss their entire team, and the Cardinals were going to win. That's how dominant he was.
He took over that Super Bowl too.
He took over the playoffs.
Jesse is my guy again. But he was like, during our times, I thought the elites of the elites were, was supposed to make the Hall of Fame. But I do remember a time where Troy Aikman made the Hall of Fame. And I legit think Troy Aikman was Jimmy Garoppolo of the day. I'm just playing. No, but Troy Aikman was not as. No, I'm just playing. Troy Aikman was
no. You're more right than wrong with that statement.
No, I'm not gonna say that. No, I'm not gonna say that. But he wasn't that great. He wasn't that great. And let me just say this about Tiki Barber while he's looking for his list. Tiki Barber's first 5 years in the league stunk. We got to make sure we talk about that. He had 5 good years. He had 5 bad years. Frank Gore consistently was good all throughout his career. Of course, later in his career, he was older. But I remember around 38, 39, or 36, where he had 700 yards for a team, but an average 4.5 yards per carry. If he actually would have got more carries, he probably would have hit 1,000, averaging over 4 yards per carry at the age of like 38. So let's make sure we tell the whole story on Frank Gore.
Coughlin squared him away on that fumble. He started carrying it high and tight. Coughlin squared him up too. Yeah.
I don't have my list with me, Chris, and this thing will get derailed real quick if we go that route. Let's do a spaces about it, because I ran a spaces about it a while back. Vish came in, he disagreed with me, and by the time I was done talking, he's like, you know what? I agree with you. So I've got it. I'm prepared.
No.
Like, I don't just say things to say them. If I'm gonna say it, I'm going to be prepared, and I do have a list. I have all my reasons why, but it's in my different notebook that I can't
remember
find.
You said he only has I think he only has 1 or none All Pros, but I countered that and said, well, Trent Williams for the longest wasn't the first team All Pro until this year. This year was his first year, his first team All Pro. So things are different. Like it's a travesty to think that Trent Williams don't have like 3 or 4 All Pro seasons, but it's just the way the NFL works.
Yeah, but if you go look at Fitzgerald's seasons compared to some of those other guys, like it actually stacks. Now Trent, that's a whole different thing. An offensive line is so much tougher to actually judge because there's not stats you can look at. But when you look at Fitzgerald and you compare it to some of those other seasons those guys were having, like Antonio Brown had arguably the best 6-season stretch we may have ever seen outside of Jerry Rice. Antonio Brown was that deal now. So
yeah, but I mean, nobody would disagree and say Antonio Brown's not a top 10 player.
No, for sure. But there was a lot of people snatching All Pros on Fitzgerald's watches or his watch. And when you look at it and you actually look at his numbers compared to those guys, I don't know if there's a season that you can look at it and say, well, he deserved to get it over X player. I don't ever remember hearing that argument when we were talking about it, but
you can't hold him just to All Pros because Fitzgerald, I can consistently say, was a top 3 receiver for a long stretch. And over that stretch, probably the most consistent with the greatest hands. Fitzgerald would have like 2 drops over like 4 or 5 seasons. Like this man caught everything that came his way.
Oh, he's a Hall of Famer. Listen, I'm not saying he's not a Hall of Famer. I said he's not top 10. Now that's a whole different thing. Now we want to get into top 5s, top 10s like that. Talk about just straight opinion. That is an opinion thing for sure. But again, you don't want to slight. Like when you say, if I say Fitzgerald's 11 and not 10, people are like, oh my gosh, it's like really is. If you have him at 9 and I have him at 11, is that really that big of a deal? You know what I mean? So that's where I see it. He's certainly not top 7. Like
Croc, I want to ask you a question, Croc. Who do you think is better, Larry Fitzgerald or Tim Brown and Chris Carter?
I mean, I think you can make an argument for any of those guys being better.
No, but who do you think is better? Just answer it. Don't. I don't want no 50-50. Nope. You got to be all in.
You said Fitzgerald, Chris Carter, and who? Tim Brown?
Tim Brown.
I'm glad you answered.
I think Tim Brown might be the best of the trio.
Second best.
And then between Chris Carter and Fitzgerald is probably a toss-up because they're very similar.
Just say who's better out of them two.
I don't know. It's different because I watched, I grew up watching like Chris Carter when I was a kid. It was like, damn, that's Chris Carter. And like you see some of the things he's doing, and then you watch Fitzgerald, and he's just kind of like a bigger version of that. So
That's true. That's very true.
He was like the ball boy from Minnesota, and learned. Chris Carter was his mentor, basically.
Yep.
Real quick, somebody asked me,
Frank Gore is
Isaac Bruce ever? Somebody asked me, was Isaac Bruce ever a top 3 receiver? You look at some of this dude's numbers, and yeah.
Wait, but you said it's not all about numbers, Croc. But
like you see the dominance though, especially for a Rams team who probably was hella ass playing for the Rams and still almost 1,800 receiving yards, only second to Jerry Rice.
Wait,
1,800 yards.
But you said we can't always look at numbers. You said that.
I said, okay, but that's in the system. I can't remember 1995. So if you ask me, like, I remember 1995 in the system. I know 49ers is good, but did I watch Isaac Bruce in 1995? No, I was like 8 years old. But I know I could see what he did, and I could assume what everybody else felt about him that year. And they probably would say he was a bad mother sucker. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. I'm gonna give you that because I remember in '95 I only was really watching the Niners, and of course I would see the Packers, and I hated certain players on the Packers. So yeah, I'll give you that one.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it looked great. But anyways, we're going along today, man. I appreciate everybody that contributed to a great show. So does anybody have any last parting words before we get out of here?
Consistency matters, folks. Consistency matters. Consistency plus numbers plus longevity plus impact matters.
All right, I hear you. That's my guy Roscoe. Appreciate you coming on. We got Jesse. I really appreciate all y'all. And listen, this is how it's supposed to be, right? Like a conversation, a debate. There were no name calling. There were no, you're an idiot because you think this. There was no, oh, you're so wrong. You're this, you're that. I see a lot of that going on social media, especially on Twitter. And it's like, gosh, this is like, it's ridiculous. You can't even have an opinion. But I respect everyone's opinion that came on here today. Medic Mike, I appreciate you. Terry Don, obviously, my guy Jesse as well. Shout out to all y'all, man. Any last words from any of y'all?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, love everybody's opinions. That was a lot of fun. If you do not tune in over at Last Second Sports, please do so. I actually just had the opportunity to interview Randy Hedberg last night. Posted it on my channel. If you don't know who Randy Hedberg is, he is the quarterback coach at NDSU. So we talked all things Trey Lance. It's about a 25-minute video. So if you want to learn more about Trey Lance and what makes him special, definitely go check that out. It's there right now. Appreciate everybody. Even those in the chat, one guy was trying to get on my neck for saying I don't know my top 10. I do know my top 10 wide receivers, but when I come to a debate, I like to come correct. I like to have stats. I like to have reasons as to why. And if I don't have all those stats in front of me, then it defeats the purpose, because the debate can go so many different ways, and I want to be able to have everything in front of me. So thank you. Appreciate y'all. Peace.
No doubt. Hey, Jess, before you go, you mentioned you want to talk on Twitter, and you mentioned a Korean movie that it was about movies, and I hadn't checked that movie out. You said it was one of the best. It was up near Parasite. Do you remember that movie?
I don't think that was me. I'm not a big movie buff. Are you sure that was me?
I think it was. We were talking about I don't know, it's some really great movies that some people might not have seen.
Yeah, I don't know.
Twitter talk.
That doesn't sound familiar to me.
Hold
It may
on.
not have been
I
me.
got a question for y'all before we get out of here. Was Ezra and James ever better than Frank Gore?
Yes.
Yes.
Edge was nice. Another one from the U. It's a lot of them. Clinton Portis, Edger and James. Who else? Of course, Frank Gore. Walter Payton's son was coming off the bench. The 2001 Miami Hurricanes was the greatest college football team ever assembled. I'll go on record with that, and I will debate anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Andre Johnson, Antro Roll.
Andre Johnson, Mount McKinney, Jonathan Vilma was on there. The late great Sean Taylor, Andre Johnson was on there. Man, we were loaded.
Andre Johnson's in my top 10, by the way. I do have Andre Johnson above Fitz, so there we go.
We were loaded.
Great interview, by the way, Jesse. I listened to that interview with NDSU's coach. Great interview. Everyone go listen to that. It's really good. Really good stuff.
Appreciate it. All right, y'all. Have a good one.
All right, y'all. Thanks for coming on, guys.
All right, man.
Later.
Shout out to everybody that contributed to a great show. Good conversation. Appreciate all y'all. I did talk about coming on here, how I was going to start this kind of podcast where I talk about things outside of 49ers, right? Like just things in life, whether it's business things that I got going on, different topics around like maybe other NFL teams, whatever it is, whatever comes to my mind is going to be a one time a week podcast. So different than the morning show. Morning show is specific 49ers, and this is more of a radio show for all of y'all, where I bring people on, callers, content creators, people that contribute. That one, it'll be more like real life type stuff. So hopefully y'all tune into that. Y'all know I won't be coming on talking about no BS. I wanted to have something that would be like raw and real, but sometimes when I go off on my tangents to start the show, at times, some people are like, all right, like, when is he going to talk about football? When is he going to talk about football? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to separate it. One time a week, I'm going to come out and just get my thoughts on everything going on. Shout out to all the listeners, everybody that contributed to a great show, all the commenters, all the contributions. I appreciate and love all of y'all. Now, finally, tomorrow, we will get back to what I originally was going to talk about today, which was narratives that get pushed on players and how they have to kind of fight to overcome those things. We're going to get to all that and more. Keep it locked right here. It's San Francisco 49er Morning Show. Hit that like button, subscribe button, all that good stuff, man. We are out. Peace.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Aaron Crocker. Over midfield. He'll run it all the way into the end zone.
Crop Talk TV podcast. Peace.